Hello, my name is Mark Cashman, and I'm a senior product manager at Microsoft. I'm on the Microsoft 365 marketing team, and I have a history of SharePoint. I look after Microsoft lists and a lot of what we do as content services in Microsoft Teams. But I want to take some time today to talk about hybrid work from a broader perspective in how hybrid work is changing a lot of what we've done or are doing during the pandemic. But even pre and post pandemic, there's a lot that we've learned in how to optimize where you're working, where other people that you're working with are working from, and of course, all of the content there within, whether it's within a chat, whether it's in a managed space, whether it's just something that you're working on by yourself and you're getting ready to share. There's a lot to consider when you think about leveraging Microsoft 365, the tools that are at your fingertips across hybrid work, and that is inclusive of your entire team or your entire organization. When you look at from a hybrid paradox, the research that we've seen, and we hope that you've been hearing the same, if not even considering what you do in the same way, that we know a lot of people are wanting to take advantage of working from home or working remote or working when they're on the go, and that there's this switch to become more flexible. And that may be from a human resources perspective. People want, or employees are voicing that they want that more flexibility. But because of the pandemic, it kind of airs on working from home or having a more remote experience with you and your other peers. And so there's also this notion of people wanting to get back and be collaborative and have more face to face or a lot more closer proximity to getting things done. So if this hybrid paradox sounds familiar, we all have this shared experience through the pandemic, but also just through as you come out of it or you're considering what is this new way of working. It may just be wanting to establish better patterns and practices for how people who are remote are engaged and wanting to make sure that they're not only feeling engaged, but also have that notion of being able to retain their value and connect with their peers. So our leader here at Microsoft, Satya Nadella, he is our CEO. He is stating, I think, what has become a kind of an obvious notion of how people are experiencing this. There are troubling times, and that if everything becomes more complex, not less complex in a hybrid space or a hybrid work environment, that there's a lot of things that Microsoft has learned. We've adjusted as our own organization as a larger enterprise and have done a lot of sharing back in the context of the tools that we're building, the learning that we've had at scale for 163,000 people size organization, and anything that we can do as far as feedback we're getting from our customers to wrap that up to make what is complex less complex or to give you the tools to be able to accomplish the state that you want to be in. And so as we move to embrace this in a flexible way and provide tooling, best practices, and of course that open space to learn from others, we really push into this notion of a new operating model. And this operating model has a couple of parts to it, the way that we've been proposing it, but also have been hearing it, that across the spectrum of people, places, this is really physical places and digital places, and the notion of being able to adhere to what are your business processes? What can we do to help automate some of that? That might just be automating how people are notified and brought into a discussion, but it also is information management. So if we can optimize both how people engage with each other, how they engage with content, from wherever they are, and that may change not only because of if as we come out of the pandemic things change just as much as they did when we went into it, but the notion of a modern workplace is if I'm traveling, if I'm in a branch office, if I'm at a distant location on a smaller device, or I'm like I am today working from home, I'm able to engage, connect, get access to the people and content the same as I would expect no matter where I am, again, no matter what device. And with those business processes being more automated, some of that is to be able to present you with material that's right there for you because the system knows a lot about what you're doing, who you work with, what your focus is, and to be able to promote content to you from a discovery mechanism versus something like going and always searching and finding. So with this new operating model, I wanted to highlight one of the articles that Satya put out there that brought in a lot of this research and went into depth, and it was based on a LinkedIn post that he put. So I want to click into this and show you, just so you get a reference, and we'll make sure to put this as a link that you can go and track it down. So if you jump out to LinkedIn and you find this article or look under Satya, under a lot of his posts, they're all great. But this one in specific around the hybrid work paradox, as you scroll down and read through a lot of what I just kind of went through at a high level, it really is a descriptor and a lean into what does it mean to help people in this new hybrid way of working, to establish new ways and new places. There are new tools that we're offering. I will discuss Microsoft Viva in just a little bit. But just want to highlight this, if you want to read more in depth, there are videos that go along with each of the three sections and a lot more to read, especially one of the things if you've ever used Alt Space VR, whether you have a headset or you just use it in a two-dimension fashion, it's really interesting to read how other companies are taking advantage of this new way of remotely connecting. So I encourage, this is a great article. It's a quick read. And if you aren't already following Satya in LinkedIn, I would encourage you to do that. He always has a lot of great material and great things to say from a leadership perspective. So if you start to look at the different ways that people are engaging with each other from different locations, there are the three dimensions of a hybrid workplace. You have your work site, which you may not have been at for a while, or as you're starting to go back, maybe you're going back in kind of a half-time fashion. You also have your work location as it differs. This used to be in the context of how people stay connected when they're traveling, when they're on the go, or just need to check something very quickly in a mobile fashion. And maybe your work hours change. I like to think of this across my team as we have a few people that work in very different locations. One is in Norway and one is in Australia. So a lot of times when they remote into our discussions, whether it's a team meeting or I set up and schedule time with them, we're very mindful of the time zones and when people connect. But on off hours, it shouldn't be hard to keep the conversation going, to find the content that we're working on. It should be right there in line with either the time that we're meeting or those asynchronous times that we're not meeting. All of this really rallies around people. Where are you? What are you working on? What access level do you have when you're in different locations? It really should be all the same all the time. Not that you should be working all the time, but when you're working or when you need to reference something and connect with somebody, that you are able to do that no matter where you are. The cloud, or the notion that really keeps it together, is giving you that single source of truth that's always accessible to you. So as you prepare for this, I like to think of this as kind of a left to right way through my day. And it may be from an individual's perspective to a team perspective to a throughout the organization. There is this new model that's shifting that we're highlighting as hybrid work. And in different industries, we're hearing it from analysts. There is not only a notion of hybrid work, but a shift in priorities. When do you work? When can you be connected? Or when do you disconnect by nature of life or just taking a break from work? So we certainly see that there's always the end user or individual priorities. What is your day? How do you define it? There are things that you can control and there are some things that you can't. When it comes to being productive on the go, remote, like I mentioned with branch offices, we want that to be a connected experience, especially when it comes to collaboration. This can be near or real-time collaboration. It can also be asynchronous, but it should be very easy to access what it is that you're working on, to get back to what you're working on, to connect with others if you're in a real-time state, to see what they're working on, and have that be, if we switch into this little bit more broader notion, from an IT perspective, this should be really easy to manage. In fact, it's not that much different from an IT perspective once it's all set up and configured to manage it. If you have anything from a governance or a device management setup, so you can manage who can create new content, new locations, new places to share, and how do they access that. If you want to enable mobility, you can certainly do that. If you want to manage those devices, be them PCs or mobile devices, you can certainly do that. And as it broadens out into where people are working, where they're accessing from, those access points are the main things that change, but your ability to manage them doesn't. What sometimes we start with in the conversation is just getting that identity right, so that when I log into the system, no matter what device, no matter what access point I log in from, I am, in my case, Mark Cashman when I sign in, and I have the rights and permissions to do X, Y, and Z. And that's adhered to even if I sign in on a mobile device. Sometimes that requires me to do something like multi-factor authentication, But once configured, it not only keeps me safe and secure, gives me the access that I need no matter where I'm from, and that really takes into consideration what are the organization policies? What are the things that we want to make sure people can do? And if there's anything that people shouldn't or can't do based on certain zones and certain ways of accessing, there will be those either tool tips and reminders or more official blockers to keep them from doing things like that. This, of course, is all in a secure environment where you put your content, where people are active and engaged in conversation, where they're meeting, where they're chatting. All of that is secure no matter what type of content and no matter the way that you're engaging with that content. One of our primary vehicles that gives us this notion of being able to collaborate across a lot of different types of content and different conversation modalities is Microsoft Teams. You may have heard this as the hub for teamwork, and it really is stretching beyond teamwork in the kind of legacy sense. If we think of teamwork as where we're collaborating on early draft of material, we're working on refining information that we might be soon sending back to the client. We're going to be doing this in a lot of different ways. We might be meeting and conversing. We might record those meetings and learn and share that with other people who weren't able to attend the meeting. Conversations over time are really great resources for people who are just joining a project or just joining a team to be able to go back in time, to be able to search through that content. And of course, if you're thinking of Teams as augmenting your entire phone system, it does that. It does that in spades. But from a hybrid work, once you're established, to be able to call your peers, to be able to hold team meetings, to be able to have things that are broader live events or all hands type coordinated meetings with Q&A intact, with two-way engagement. That really is the bread and butter of what Microsoft Teams offers. If you layer on top of that everything that you might do with content, that might be a site, it might be a document, might be a full document repository, or it might be something like a list of information that you can easily access, easily refer to in a chat, link to, and of course, get work done. Microsoft Teams really is becoming the center of all of that. And in addition to what I'll talk about next, is broadening the scope of bringing your entire intranet inside of Teams, knowing that a lot of people are spending a lot more time using Teams, and why not be able to save them one context switch out to another application or to another browser and keep that in where they are already working, but with really nice tools to establish it being a really great experience. So layering on top of Microsoft Teams, we're starting to bring in what effectively is a new category in the industry. This is the employee experience platform notion. But if we narrow that down and remove the platform piece, not that it goes away, because there's a lot that you can do from making this a real custom experience inside of Teams through a lot of different scenarios, but it is that employee experience. And in hybrid work, the more inclusive somebody can be, the more retention, the more excitement, and of course, we think the more joy out of business, which is always good for the business. Microsoft Viva really focuses on enhancing that employee experience. There are 4 modules that come, and they're very distinct in what they offer as unique tools and unique sets of information and unique ways of engaging with a lot of different types of people and content. And I'll go through quickly what each of these are, and then we'll see them in demo. Connections is really all about bringing your company portal or your broadest information dissemination site into Teams that's one click away from going from your chats to your meetings right into your intranet. This is really built and founded on the SharePoint home site capabilities, but it brings it all into a great experience right inside of Teams so you can see news, information, you can perform company-wide searches, all of that intact. With Insights, it's really built on top of what was My Analytics and Workplace Analytics and brings it into a more of an aggregated view of what are you doing throughout your day, what are you doing too much of, what are things that the system can help remind you of that may be mentioned in a chat or an email, but it really gives you that insight into what you're doing and what can you do to be more effective with your work. On top of that, it also gives you reminders on when you might need to take a break from work. We have a great connection in Insights with Headspace, which is really focused around giving you moments of clarity through encouraging you to take a break. It can be taking a break through a guided meditation, or it can just be a reminder to get up, get outside, breathe some fresh air, go get some coffee. But it's a really great tool that knows a lot about what your habits are and be able to promote how you might be able to tune and tailor those to improve your work experience. With learning, I hope this is a pretty straightforward one. It is to promote you to when you want to up-level your skills, when you want to be trained or learn something that maybe is internal training. There's a custom aspect to this, or it can be very broad training that's provided from a third-party provider. We always highlight LinkedIn Learning because that's one of the default connected training experiences with Inside Learning. But it extends beyond that. If you have investments in other learning systems, including your own custom internal systems, that training is just one click away to be able to find something, to be able to view it, or potentially even to recommend it to somebody else in a chat. That's then a great experience for them to click into and actually see that training. Both written and video format flows right through and is that connected experience inside of Teams. The last one goes beyond Teams, but it will have an aspect in Teams. If there's something that you come across that's a product name, an acronym, something that somebody within your organization has deemed an important topic, Topics really bubbles that up when you are on a SharePoint page, if you're in an Outlook email or a Teams chat, and there's one of those topics or words that's a common unknown or just something that has a lot more information behind it. Instead of always exposing all of that information, you just have that topic. It gets highlighted, something like I use Microsoft Lists and reference it a lot in terms of my internal training to my peers here at Microsoft. And so Microsoft List is a known topic inside of Microsoft that gets highlighted whenever you type it in. And then for other people who maybe don't yet know what Microsoft List is, they can hover over it. They'll get a nice topic card that they can drill in and learn who are the Microsoft Lists subject matter experts at Microsoft, what are some of the main resources, and on and on. It's an information and knowledge management discovery system, but right there where you're working. So these 4 modules are what we offer today, and they're either mostly rolled out or rolling out soon. But we've talked a lot about what Microsoft Viva is conceptually, but I think it's time to dive in and see what it looks like from a demo perspective. So the first thing that we'll look at is what I was just last talking about, Viva Topics. Viva Topics is that experience that you will see throughout Microsoft 365. And the example here is if I'm in a Teams chat and I see an acronym like SOAR that somebody referenced, I can click into it and see a topic card pop up that gives me a little insight into what does SOAR stand for, who are the people associated to it, and some of the suggested resources. If I were to go into the fuller details, this will actually take me into what we call a topic page. It's that same subset of information expanded to show more. Who are more of the people that are involved? What is more of the content that I can learn to find out more about SOAR? And it's a place where it's been configured here on this page to be a two-way dialogue. If there are questions, I can actually ask a question. This is based on Yammer, and it's just a Yammer web part on a topic page. When I go in to ask a question, as you can imagine, I type it out, and this will actually go and highlight back to those subject matter experts that are monitoring this environment, and of course will then answer the question or provide feedback based on what it is that the person was looking for. So in line, you can go and certainly find out more about what it is that becomes highlighted, these various topics. When you go to the home page for Viva Topics, you can see now a whole set of multiple topics and drill into them. If you are somebody who's managing these at your company, you can go in and you can see what topics are published, what are the different topics that are being accessed, which ones have been published, which ones are maybe ready to publish, those kinds of things. And once you do that, you have this kind of consistent experience for people that no matter where they are, if there's something that's a known acronym or a known project name or just even just a product or project, you can highlight that and you'll have a lot of those great insights right where people are working from. On the flip side, we go into Viva Connections, which is a little bit more tailored information that's promoted to everybody. But again, it's intended to be a two-way dialogue with a lot of things that you can build into it as actionable tasks for people to come across. So primarily through Microsoft Teams, in the upper left where you see the Relic Cloud icon, if you move from your calendar, your Teams, your chats, if you click into Relic Cloud, this would be a custom icon for your company. You would go to what you see here, which is effectively the Relic Cloud company portal. And on this, the way it's been designed, it's highly configurable. You have your top navigation, you've got your news or whatever you want to promote up front. And on the right-hand rail, it gets to be a very personalized space. This also relates to what you see then on the mobile experience. This would be the mobile Teams mobile app. And as you start to release and deploy something like Viva Connections, you really start to up-level and aggregate this great view across a lot of different information and information types. So here in the mobile, you see that the news comes through. You can click into it. You can read it. You can, of course, follow up with comments, provide your own comment. And there's a lot of ways to engage with the content as you're leveraging what it is that you're coming across. The consistency, whether you're on the web in the desktop client, if you're on mobile, you're seeing the same content. You are logged in and seeing what you have access to see or what's being directed towards you through audience targeting, which is a big part of rolling out a intranet like this. If you click into the dashboard, this is where it starts to get a lot more customizable. So you can build in specific things that you want using what the industry calls adaptive cards. But using that technology, you can build in these actionable notes that bring in things from your HR department, from your IT department. You'll see things that are coming from other Viva modules. I mentioned Viva Insights. This is that Headspace guided meditation that's coming through. Some of this will be automated because of what you've deployed. Some of it will be based on exactly what you configured and what your intentions were for the end user experience to be. But again, delivered through the Teams mobile app, you see that Relic Cloud icon again in the bottom left in mobile. And that's something that we're really excited for people to have access to. And in the context of a better employee experience, we hope it brings the information that they're either being targeted with, so it's most important that they read it, or things that it will be of most interest to them based on who they work with and the teams that they work on. And of course, our focus is for this to be a unique experience for everybody, so that when you sign in, you see on the left-hand side, one user is signed in, their peer, somebody else is signed in on the right-hand side, and they get some of the same information, but they also get unique cards that are shown to them based on who they are, what role or what region they're in, and you can tailor that audience targeting really well, but at the same time, map that with content that's meant for everybody. So holistically, when you think of Viva Connections, think of it as a great way to disseminate information, to target information, and to not have to worry so much about what device somebody is on. We already are working on making sure that it's an adaptive experience for the individual and for the device that they're on. When you turn to something like Viva Learning, this is another app experience inside of Microsoft Teams that gives you a place to find your learning, things that either have been guided and directed towards you based on a recommendation of your manager or a peer. There's an assignment element and a recommended element. As you navigate through, and if you're just searching for content, you can see any of the systems that you're connected to. You saw LinkedIn Learning. We have partners like Pluralsight. There are also notions of providing your own custom training. You'll see it listed here under My Learning, and as you individually click into a learning, you can learn more about it and then start learning right there inside of Teams. This is a full module to learn about leading remote projects and virtual teams, and as you can see, it's got a lot of different modules, and I'm still in Teams, and when I'm finished, I just close it out and I'm right back to where I was. In the context of when I'm chatting, there's actually a learning module that I can use within the chat to recommend a specific training to somebody else. So if I go into a specific way to highlight this as a full channel experience, I can add an entire set of training as a tab in a Teams channel. And so I can really narrow down a set of training that I think is really important to something like this, Project SOAR. So I can create a full tab, again, click into learning, maybe even assign it to somebody, give them a task to take this training and move on. If I've done that a number of times as a manager, I can check how many people have actually completed the training, how many people are in progress, and things like not yet started. So it's a great mechanism for me to be able to promote learning, to be able as an individual to take the learning, and of course, from a manager perspective, to be able to ensure that people are getting directed to the learning expectations that we're setting out there for them. And with Viva Insights, this is really a place where it's all about what you are doing. How much time are you spending in email? How much time are you spending in meetings? There are a lot more metrics that we're working on and planning for the future. But as you go into the Insights app inside of Teams, you'll get this nice dashboard experience that really promotes to you what it is that you are doing, how it is that you can reclaim time of your day or days to come, how you can maybe wind down at the end of the day to review what we call a virtual commute. But it's very easy to see the different modules on the page so that you can see when you have open time, when your next meeting's coming, if you wanted to schedule some of that time. You can also see some of the training comes through. So if you were recommended training, that would come through Insights as something that it's reminding you to do or encouraging you to do. And I had mentioned Headspace. This is a great way to be able to click into and start a meditation that's guided, whether it's 1 minute, 3 minutes, 10 minutes. You get to choose what that is. And if you like that, you can schedule a little bit more into your day. The virtual commute is a great way to end your day so that you can see exactly what it is that you might want to prepare for or remind yourself of. You can do this through the web. And of course, as you see now, you can do a lot of this through the mobile so that you can go and engage through what it is, that activity that you want. And if it's a meditation when you're on the go, I recently tried this because this is now starting to roll out for us in a beta format. It's a really nice way to click in, listen to the meditation while I'm walking, and then get back to what I was doing. The other side of this is if you are a manager managing a team across ways to help promote what their work styles might be, this is not a big brother view into somebody knowing exactly what you're doing every day, but it is when you start to leverage insights and you promote and do certain actions, that'll start to inform the manager that the team is taking advantage of downtime, scheduling focus time, leveraging the meditation holistically and abstracting that information so that the manager gets another data point or data points into how is the team doing? Are they getting close to burnout, or might they be getting close to burnout? But it's a really nice view into the different metrics that the system can, in an abstract, anonymous way, promote to somebody who might want to guide their team from doing a little more of this or a little less of that. There's also a pivot of being able to do this at an org level. And so if you imagine if you are somebody who's a leader of multiple teams, this just gives you a broader aggregate view of what your teams are doing and how you might enhance their employee experience through tweaking a few things based on this information that's coming your way. I wanted to wrap up and just share a few items that have been published by Microsoft based on a lot of our research, our aggregated research with a lot of analysts and people out there who are subject matter experts in just improving employee experience. So I have 3 assets that I want to show you. The first one is a hybrid work guide, something that you can glance through probably in about 10 or 15 minutes to learn a lot more on how the different parts of your organization can benefit from getting more prepared to move into either hybrid work or just a new way of working that makes it more inclusive. So this goes across a lot of different disciplines. So the guide can be something you can read online or you can download it and share with others, but it really gives you that ability to look across, again, people, places, and processes and start to make the most of making that shift to a hybrid work environment. This does not mean a complete operations shift. It does not mean shutting down physical buildings, but it really optimizes when you look at your operations team, your human resources team, your IT team. What are the different things that they can do to optimize how they're supporting the business, and of course, how they're supporting their own employees? It really brings everybody into the same room or gives everybody a closer place to connect. And there's just a lot of great information and guidance to learn about the scenarios and how they can be better supported for patterns and practices. And of course, layering in how there are Microsoft products that are probably already within your toolkit to be able to take advantage of and just push a little bit more to be able to promote and support hybrid work in a better fashion. The next asset that I wanted to talk about is an even shorter guide that summarizes some of what I mentioned, but it really is in the context of a lot of what we've learned with COVID-19. So it certainly implies that if you have a significant shift, or if you haven't fully shifted and you're still doing a lot of the work to make sure that everything is in place so that people can work in a more flexible, more remote or hybrid fashion. So let me quickly show you what this download looks like, and I think you'll see it at a glance that it's a super helpful guide. So again, this is pretty short. If you navigate through, it is 26 pages, but it's very visual, and it just walks you through these different stages that I think we are all very familiar with that we went through. But if you structure this when you know you've got a big acquisition coming, or you've got some large project or event, there's a lot of things that you can do to prepare that gives you that flexibility. The extreme being the pandemic, but the learnings off of that is just how can you get engaged and set up so that at scale you can react and be proactive in the next round. So there's a lot of great information. Some of it is what I was just walking you through from the presentation, but it just gives you a sense of some of the top level things to think about, guidance, places to go, things to consider as you go through this. And it really gets very tactical towards the end so that you can take some of these actions and even go through them as a guide to get set up and get into a better state to support hybrid work. And the last one that I want to point to is a broader website that we've created called WorkLab. The focus here is around employee experience and employee engagement. And there are a lot of great assets. A lot of them are articles, some of them are resources or pointers to what our analysts are saying to share that knowledge so that you can be more familiar with the art of the possible when you consider what you can do. And of course, when you start to make that switch into what it is that you want to do. So let me go out to the WorkLab site and just show you a few things. The site's been designed so that it's quick read material and it really focuses on if this disruption, be it the pandemic or just a significant shift at your work, just establishing a more flexible workplace has a lot that is required to get into that more flexible state. This gives a lot of the reasoning and thinking behind it if you are a leader of your company or just a leadership position within your team or organization. There's a lot of things that you can learn if this resonates with what you're seeing through your employees. It really lends itself to then end up on, well, what can you do about it? And a lot of it is based on a really friendly guide through. I'm just scrolling a web page with a lot of great information. But I encourage you to read this so you can get a lot more fluent on what it is that you're seeing and then what it is that you can do about it to more democratize and be more inclusive, especially if you are a pretty broadly distributed, pretty diverse company. So I want to thank you for your time. I know that there's a lot to consider when you think about either moving further into hybrid work, establishing better practices for how people can work together, taking advantages of new technology like Microsoft Viva, leveraging more of what Microsoft Teams offers, or a lot of other technology, whatever it is that makes it so that your employees and you as an individual feel more engaged at work, feel more connected, and you find it easier to get work done. Finding a piece of content, finding the right person shouldn't be a hurdle, and feeling heard also should not be a challenge when you're working in this modern way, especially from a hybrid work perspective.